Let's talk about how narcissists justify their horrendous, horrible, awful behavior. The rest of the world is looking at them going, what the hell? How are you doing this? And you don't even see it. And for those of us who've been in relationships with narcissists, you think that obviously they must see it. They must know what they're doing or how they're making people feel or the damage that they're doing, the drama, the trauma, the chaos that they cause, right? But how do they get away with it and just they sleep at night? How do they justify it to themselves? That's what we're going to talk about today. So when you're dealing with a narcissist, it's really important to understand the psyche of a narcissist. So a lot of people just think a narcissist is anybody who says, I'm great, I did something amazing. Okay, fantastic. I mean, sometimes people say that because they need to for their own credibility or whatever, but that's not the only part of what makes a narcissist. Just because somebody says, I accomplished something doesn't make them a narcissist. What really is where the rubber hits the road, what really makes that narcissist a narcissist is the fact that they cannot feel empathy for anyone else. And that's the part that a lot of people forget about. They just can't. Sometimes they're good enough, if they're a covert narcissist, they're good enough at pretending like they care about a person. They know what the steps are that they have to go through. They know what to say. They know the actions that they probably need to take just enough to manipulate the person into having them do what they want to do or feel what they want them to feel. But they don't actually feel anything for that other person. So how does that manifest itself when they're justifying their heinous behavior? Well, it manifests itself in a number of ways. So the first way that they justify their behavior to themselves is they just decide that they're always right. They literally think that they're always right. Remember that a narcissist has no inner sense of value. They are like the smallest, most fragile little egos on the planet. So to admit that they're wrong actually means that they have to give away like a part of themselves that they just decided like when they were 5 or 6, 7 years old that they could never do. It's survival for them. They just cannot admit that they're wrong. So how do they justify their behavior to themselves? They just decide that they're always right. They'll never admit that they're wrong. You know, no matter how many mistakes there are, no matter how many things they did, you look at it and you go, you know, even if you present them evidence, you know, here's where you said something and here's where you're wrong, they'll just decide, no, that doesn't exist. I'm right. So that's number one. They're always right. Number two is you're wrong. And it kind of seems like the same thing as I'm always right, but it's just one more step forward with this. And it's like, okay, if I'm always right, then you must be the one that's wrong. Or somebody else must be the one that's wrong. And that's what happened, you know, caused this behavior. You know, I had an employee one time who constantly was making mistakes, but she would always say it had to do with somebody else. You know, I was waiting for this to happen, and that's why I didn't get it done on time. You know, she could never say, you know, I should have figured out how to get it done on time. She just always had to make somebody else wrong. So someone else was wrong. So, you know, deflecting this onto someone else is another way of saying you're wrong rather than, you know, I'm right. So since I'm right, you must be wrong or somebody else must be the wrong one. And if this is sounding really familiar to you and you've wondered how the heck do they sleep at night, give me an SMH for shaking my head in the comments. And if you want to know more about deflecting and how narcissists deflect, make sure you check out my video on how to catch a narcissist in a lie and what happens when you do catch a narcissist in a lie. The third way that narcissists sleep at night is that they just decide that the rules and the laws or whatever it is, they just don't apply to them. They're for other people. They're for people who are lesser than them. They're for people who, are ordinary, and they're not. So, they don't have to abide by what everybody else wants because they're entitled. They're entitled, and that's why they can cross boundaries and they can do all the things that make people miserable. And they're not wrong in doing that because they're entitled. So, one of the narcissists in my life used to come right in to people's houses, go right into people's offices, go right into the back part of people's offices, just go start talking to people, not even, telling or asking the receptionist if they could do that. They just go right in because they're entitled. And so normal rules, normal laws didn't apply to that person because that person was entitled to do what he or she wanted to do. So that's number 3. So how do they even keep going once these things have happened? So, once they've denied it, they've deflected, they've said it's your fault, they've blamed it on other people, how are they moving on and how are they sleeping at night? Well, number 1 is, okay, well, let's not dwell on that. Let's just move on. So you're not going to get an apology, probably. And if you do, they may not mean it. And if you want to know more about narcissist apologies, check out my video on whether or not narcissists apologize. And if they do they mean it? But if they have apologized or they haven't, whatever, from that point forward, they just want to erase it from their memories, and they expect you to erase it from your memory too and just move on. You're not allowed to have lingering hurt over it or upset, or, being upset about it. You're supposed to just move forward, move on. It's done. Forget about it. So whenever a narcissist is faced with having to have a conscience about something that they've done or any havoc that they've raised or some kind of thing that they're supposed to take responsibility for, the easiest way for them to sleep at night is just, say, I don't even know what you're talking about anymore. And that's kind of like the gaslighting process too, because they'll just say, I don't know what you're talking about. It didn't happen that way. Or if it happened that way, it wasn't that bad. You're overblowing it. You're making way more out of the situation than you needed to. Or, no, I actually wasn't involved with that, even though you know that they were. Or I didn't cause it to happen. Somebody else caused it to happen. So if you're upset, it shouldn't be at me. So how they sleep at night is just decide that whatever happened, if it was wrong, it wasn't their fault. And if it was their fault, it wasn't that bad. And since it wasn't that bad, you should just move on. And everybody should just forget about it. And that'll be the easiest way for everyone to just start anew. So that's kind of how they are able to sleep at night, because they just have decided that it doesn't have anything to do with them anymore. So let's talk about why that narcissist craves conflict. I mean, it's crazy. Who would love that? And it just seems like they're just thriving on it. And in my work, I've seen people who've been dealing with narcissists for years and years and years and years. And in litigation, even in cases, sometimes it's years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. I actually did a survey of my Facebook group and found that a huge percentage of people were dealing with narcissists for a long period of time. It was like 86% is more than 18 months, and 46% of that 86% is longer than 3 years. Why? Why do they keep going on with this thing, especially if they say to you they want it to be over? They act act like they want it to be over, but they don't let it be over. It just keeps going on and on and on, and it feels like you can never escape them and you can never get away from them. And why is that? So in this video, I'm going to tell you why. So it all comes back down to the one thing that they need, which is narcissistic supply. And how do they get it? So they crave conflict in a number of different ways. So how do they do this? So one of the ways that they do this is they create conflict so that they can be the hero. They can be the good one. They can be the one that's saves everything. They actually created the conflict, but then they can come along and be the hero and be the savior. Okay, so that's one of the reasons they crave conflict. Another one is so that they can play the victim. I've seen that happen too with the narcissists that I had to deal with in my life and with other forms of narcissists. For example, I saw someone one time who inadvertently said something to upset someone so that that person would get super upset so that a third person would see this all happening and then they would become the victim. So, it's all very sick to create conflict with one person so that you can become the victim to other people, so that other people go, oh my gosh, that is so sorry. That's awful that that's happening to you, when they themselves created that conflict. It's all really sick, but it is the way it is. So that's another reason they crave conflict, because they can get narcissistic supply from being the victim. So in one sense, they can get supply from being the hero, another sense supply from being the victim. Another reason that they crave conflict is because they want control of the situation. So by everybody else being upset and intimidated or something like that, then they now are controlling people. I had a situation in a mediation one time where the husband came in and immediately said that if their daughter, who the wife was in contact with, didn't give him back his dog, that he wouldn't even start the mediation, that we wouldn't even be able to get to anything else. Now, mind you, this is a dog that he had neglected, and that the daughter had gone over to his house to take care of because the dog had been neglected. The wife wasn't even a part of that. She was just the one that was in contact with the daughter. The wife had no control over this dog. But yet, here's the mediator coming into our room, our conference room, saying, can't you just get your daughter to give the dog back? We can't even start the mediation. He won't discuss any of the issues until he gets the dog. And we're like, even if the daughter did give the dog back, what would he do with it? Would he leave the dog in the car? Would he bring the dog in the office? I mean, it was all so insane, but yet here's everybody having a conversation. My client's on the phone with her daughter. The adult daughter is upset and crying about the whole thing. I mean, and so what is he doing at this point? He's creating drama. Everybody's running around like little peons, trying to, make him happy and figure out how to get him this dog so that we could actually have a conversation about everything else. That's craving conflict in a nutshell. That's somebody who wanted to have control over the situation. It was not about the dog. He did not care about that dog. It was about everybody else scrambling to do what he wanted so that he could set the tone for the mediation, that he's the one in control and things are going to go his way. It was his way or the highway. So there's a perfect example of somebody who wanted to crave conflict in order to have control. And if you think that this crazy making is just so insane, give me an amen in the comments. And the next thing is that they're just easily bored. And sometimes they just like to start drama because, why not start drama? And then they can be at the center of the drama. And, maybe it's that they say something bad about somebody else, and now that person's upset, and now they get to see that these two people are fighting, and they started it, and they get to go play the innocent one, and oh my gosh, this is awful, and I can't believe she said that about you, and I can't believe he said that about her, and, and now there's in this vortex of the drama, and they get to be part of it, and that also feeds their ego. It just, like everything else that they do, it comes back to narcissistic supply, but there are many different ways that they get this narcissistic supply. And in a battle with a narcissist, when you're in that discard phase, they start the smear campaigns, and they start, bad-mouthing you to everybody and trying to line up all their flying monkeys. And if you want to know more about triangulation and the phrases that narcissists use when they're triangulating, check out my video on phrases that narcissists use when they're triangulating. But they start lining up these people so that again, they can continue this drama. And why do they continue the drama? Why do they constantly move goalposts when you're trying to negotiate with them? And by the way, check out my video on why narcissists continue to move goalposts on that. But if you are wondering, it just comes down to narcissistic supply. And the only way that you're going to be able to cut off that supply source is to go no contact. And if you're negotiating with a narcissist, it's going to be through creating leverage. And that's what I talk all about in my SLAY program: strategy, leverage, anticipate what the narcissist is going to do, and focus on you and your case. And your leverage piece is definitely going to be tied up in threatening a source of supply that means more to the narcissist than the supply that they get from jerking you around and dragging you through the court system, or dragging out any kind of negotiations or conversations, or coming back to intimidate you, or offering you a settlement proposal, and even if you take it, now saying that's off the table because of something that you did. And so it goes on and on and on, and the reason it continues to go on and on and on is because they continue to get supply from that interaction, from you. They will not let go as long as there's any supply left to be had. And so that's why they crave conflict, because it gives them that ego boost. It gives them that feeling of power in the situation. You're going to know 4 things that narcissists actually care about. Yeah, there's actually 4. I'm going to give you the number 1 thing that narcissists actually care about at the end. We're going to go from number 4 to number 1. Yeah, there's actually 4 things that they actually care about. They're all wrapped up in narcissistic supply. Supply is anything that feeds their ego. So supply is really kind of the one thing that they're all kind of after, and that's their food, their lifeblood, their oxygen. They're like kind of going after that one thing all the time. They crave that in order to feel good about themselves. It's like that external thing. There's almost like a black hole inside of them that can never be filled. And you might want to fill it for them, and they want you to fill it too. And so what happens is you're left feeling totally and utterly depleted, yet they're still starving in a lot of ways. So, but there's different forms of narcissistic supply. All right. And that's what I'm going to go over here. So we're going to go from number 4 all the way up to number 1. All right. So number 4 is really themselves. At the end of the day, they really just care about themselves. I mean, they may sit there and tell you they love you, or they care about you, or if it's a business partner, even as a family member, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, it's almost like somebody who is in full-on survival mode all the time, or almost like somebody who has like a really bad toothache, or they're really in pain or something. They may want to care about you, but they can't, because all they can do is see their own pain or feel their own thing that's going on. I mean, they just can't right now. That's why they really just don't have empathy or care for somebody else, because they just can't at that moment. So number one is they just only care about themselves. Number two, or if we're working our way backwards, number four, and we're going to number three, is their stuff, their possessions, their things, which, by the way, you are one of. You are a possession. So they care about you in the sense that you are a possession to them. You're just like almost like a jar on a shelf. And, they want to kind of take you down and use whatever supply they can get out of you, if they still can. That's why they kind of move on to a better form if, there's not much left that they can get out of you, or they pick the bones off the carcass or the meat off the bones. And if there's nothing left, they go to get another source. Possessions is number two, that their stuff, their things, don't touch my things and thing, they hoard things. They hoard whatever they can. They hoard money. And I have a whole video on why narcissists hoard money. Definitely check that out. But they hoard things. They're very scarcity minded. They have a very scarcity mentality, not an abundance mentality at all. Number three, or number two, if we're working our way backwards, 4, 3, 2, we're working our way up to number one, is power. Power is something that they actually care about, very much so. Control, power, their kingdom, especially the ones that are very successful. They have big kingdoms, and they will protect their little kingdoms, and they don't really go out of their realm of their kingdom that often, because they want to stick within the kingdom that they have built. And they, that's why they're so driven to success, to have and create kingdoms, because they want to make sure that they create a kingdom that they can control. So having power, having that control over people, and they degrade people, they debase people, they do that sort of thing. They diminish people, in order to maintain that power, to maintain that control. So that's number two, if we're working our way up to number one, which we are. And, it is so time for you to slay. Slay is the name of my program. Strategy, leverage, anticipate, focus on you. And it is time for you to slay. And I want you to put that in the comments right now. It is time to slay. It is time to slay. Put that in the comments right now. Time to slay. We are working our way up to number one. The number one thing that narcissists actually care about, their image, how they look. That's everything to them. They will protect and defend that at any cost. Any cost. That's the only thing they really, really care about. How they look to the world, how they look to their new form of supply, how they look to the best form of supply, how they look to people that they respect. Image is absolutely everything to a narcissist. Everything. They're literally obsessed with their image, having the right friends, the best houses, the best cars, most prestigious jobs, all of that sort of thing is absolutely the most important thing to a narcissist. Image, number one. How do narcissists test their victims? Why do they test them at all? Number one, they test them because they want to make sure that you are for them. Because in a narcissist world, in their weird world of turmoil and the vortex of craziness, you're either for them or you're against them. If you are not for them, then you are the enemy. You become public enemy number one. So they're constantly checking to make sure that you are for them. And so you're constantly having to try to prove it all the time. And they test you in many different ways. So the reason why they do this is because they need an endless amount of what we call supply. They basically want to make sure that you are going to be there to serve what the whole purpose is of you being around to begin with, which is to feed their need for narcissistic supply. So narcissistic supply is anything that feeds their ego, which is, compliments, adulation, respect, all of those things, of course. And if you don't give them those things in the form of good supply, then they'll take it. Well, they'll take it anyway in the form of what we call bad supply, which is devaluing and debasing and making you feel bad, judging you, putting you down, little passive-aggressive things to make it known to you that you have very little worth to them. And sometimes it's little tiny things, that just kind of drip, drip, drip on your head, where it's seriously death by 1,000 cuts, or making you crazy by just doing these little things all the time. But when they're testing you, they are just making sure that you're going to stick around no matter what, even if they treat you poorly. They want to know, are you for me or against me? So they'll mistreat you, they'll put you down, they'll call you names, they'll give you the silent treatment. That's one of their biggest, by the way, is silent treatment. It's all a method of getting you back under their web of control. Because remember, the narcissistic relationship is love bomb, devalue, discard. And if you want to know more about the narcissistic relationship, check out my videos on love bombing, devaluing, and discarding. And I go much more deeply into what a narcissistic relationship looks like. It always starts with love bomb. It always ends with discard. And I had somebody tell me it's toxic stew in between, which is definitely true. But what happens is, as they're devaluing you, they can often be love bombing you. And this is all a way to keep you under their web of control. So they will be saying things to test you, by devaluing you, by causing you pain, which they don't have the ability to feel your pain. But they're going to be doing these things just to see if you're going to stick around. So silent treatment is one big one. They will just simply, stop talking to you because they want you to come back to them. Please talk to me. Please forgive me. I am so sorry for whatever I did, so that they can come back to you and they'll say, okay, fine. They might just have a tantrum, have a full-on meltdown because of the way you acted, because they want to see, are you going to stick around? Are you going to leave? Or are you going to be for me? Or are you going to be against me? They might even use hoovering or coming back. Even in the discard phase, they come back. And I see that often in divorces. What happens is, in a divorce situation, they can be acting heinous in a divorce, gaslighting you, using everything against you, using the court system against you, threatening to take your children away, threatening that you're going to pay lots of alimony, threatening that you're not going to get any if that's what you want. Threat all over the place, lying in pleadings, lying in motions, lying to lawyers, lying to the mediator, manipulating evidence, all this kinds of stuff is going on. And then right in the middle of that, they say, they'll send you an email. Oh, why are we doing this? You know that we can just get along. You know how this isn't so good for the kids. Why are we spending this money? And trying to grab you back in. Again, testing to see if they still have power over you, if they still have the ability to control you. For you guys who've been tested before and you think that you've been tested by a narcissist, give me a yup. in the comments. Another way that narcissists test their victims is on the phone. Like, so let's say you're having a telephone conversation with them, and while you're having the conversation, you feel like, okay, we've talked about what we needed to talk about, so now I want to hang up the phone. They'll say, oh, why do you want to hang up first? Don't you want to talk to me anymore? And, you know, they don't want you, that's like a form of rejection for them. Another one that's related to that is you walking away. So you're in the middle of a fight, even if they've walked away 100,000 times and didn't listen to you, they'll do the same thing back to you. Walk away so that, you know, you're the one groveling after them saying, please don't walk away. We can work this out. Come on back. Let's talk. And they're just testing you to see if you're going to go back after them. They're testing you to see if you are going to show them the respect that they want. And that's another way that they test you, by the way, is they'll constantly say things like, you don't respect me, you don't love me, you don't give me the time that I want. You're always giving time to everybody else, but you're not giving time back to me. How come you're putting everybody else first? Those are all types of phrases to test you, to see what you're going to say. Are you going to say, oh, no, you're first. Oh, no, I'm so sorry that I put somebody else in front of you. Of course, you mean the most to me. Yes, I love you. Of course, I love you. Here's all the ways that I love you. So, you know, making sure that you're still there. You're still the one. I mean, they might even make you do something for them just to see if you're going to do it, because they're testing you. They want to make sure that you're for them. They have to constantly have reassurance that you're for them. So the truth is, they're testing you from the beginning of the relationship. A lot of times what you see with narcissists is they move in super quickly. You know, the relationship is super fast-tracked in the love bomb stage. So, you know, let's meet your kids right away. I want to move, if you have children from a previous relationship, or I want to move right into your home right away. And they're testing to see if you are the right type of supply for them by how you respond to that. Because, you know, do you let them move in right away? Do you say, I love you right away? Do you immediately agree that you're supposed to be soulmates? And yes, you're meant to be together. And how crazy is it that you just met and you're soulmates and you're meant to be together? You know, that kind of thing. So the bottom line is that narcissists are testing you from the minute you walk into their lives until the minute that you go no contact and actually stop talking to them, because they always want to know, can you be a form of supply for them? And if you're not, then you are the enemy, and they're going to go after you, smear you, try to take you down as much as possible. Okay, so let's talk about what all narcissists will do to trap you, to ensnare you into their little web, their toxic web. All right, so number one, of course, they all start off with love bombing. So even if it's a business relationship, which is one that I had to deal with, and it was literally one of the worst things I ever had to deal with in my entire life. So, you know, sometimes it's called other things, but, you know, love bombing is the main thing that you hear it called. You know, this is when they come on, they're super charming. They really know how to turn it on. They're really, really great at reading people. They've spent their entire lives figuring out what they need to do to manipulate you, to ensnare you, to get you into their little web, to get you into their lair and get you where they want you to be so that you can start giving them that narcissistic supply that they so desperately crave, which is anything that feeds their ego. Remember, they have no inner sense of value. So the only way that they can feel any sense of value is from the external sources. So they love bomb you. They tell you what you want to hear, basically. They're super charming, super charismatic, and they manipulate you that way. So whether it's a business relationship, which is if it's in business, they have the perfect client, they have the perfect set of skills that you want. If it's a romantic relationship, they're the soulmate that you've been waiting for. I mean, they really, really, really know how to turn on the charm. So love bombing is definitely one of the ways that they trap you. Number two is future faking. So they promise you the world. Everything is going to be amazing. It's going to be the best business ever. It's going to be the best life that you've ever had. Everything is going to be exactly what you've always wanted it to be. And, as I said, they really know how to study people. They know how to read people. They know how to say exactly what it is that you want to hear. And they return to these things, by the way, when they need to use them. These are part of their arsenal of tricks. So they go back to the love bombing, they go back to the future faking when they need to, if they've messed up or if they have done something that they're kind of going to be caught, or if they've been devaluing you, or if they've been caught in a lie, or they've been ghosting you, or whatever it is that they've been doing, so that it's a way to project and deflect their behavior in order for you to not dwell or see what it is that they have been doing. And, I have a whole video on this, by the way, if you want to check it out. But I want you to remind yourself that they are fakers by putting fakers down in the comments so that you don't get caught in the trap of being taken in when they try to do this to you, because they will, I promise. So put fakers down in the comments right now. All right. So another thing that they will do to trap you is they will actually start devaluing you. And then they will do that, especially kind of on your way out. You'll be on your way out. You will think that you're kind of finally getting out of this relationship, and they'll actually start to devalue you so that you can't really get out. They'll be like, oh, that lawyer that you're picking, not very good. That situation that you're getting into, really stupid idea. So it's actually a way to trap you into staying where you are. When I say devaluing, it's a way to trap you, but it actually is a way to trap you into staying where you are, because the decisions that you're making to leave, they're going to say aren't smart. So it's a way of getting you to question what it is that you're doing, so that you now have to stay, because obviously they know better. And so you kind of start thinking like they're the smartest people in the world. Nobody else knows how to make decisions like they do. And I can tell you that when I was practicing law and representing people like who had been victims of narcissistic abuse, it was frustrating for me as the attorney, because a lot of times people would think, oh, but they really know better. And you'd have to kind of help them to kind of unwind that thinking of, well, they actually do know better. And even though they would know that they're liars, that they devalued, that they'd been abused by them, they would still often think that they did know better, that they are smarter. And, so unwinding a lot of that it takes some time sometimes. So anyway, so they devalue you on the way out. So number 4 is isolate you. They make you emotionally dependent on them. They break you down so that they can often be the one to make you feel better. It's also a very sick cycle. Hurt you, make you feel terrible, make you cry, so that they can actually be the one to console you. Also horrible, horrible cycle. Very sick. They want them sometimes to be the only one that you can depend on. So they really isolate you so that you have no family, no friends, but then you can't really even depend on them either. So totally isolate you. That's number 4. Number 5 is that they triangulate. Again, it's a way to isolate you, but they have like these flying monkeys so that you feel like no one else thinks like you, or everyone else is lining up against you and for them. Everyone else is saying this, or no one else believes you with this, and that's sort of like a narcissist smear campaign thing. I actually do have a whole video on the signs of a narcissist smear campaign, which you can definitely check that out as well. Number 6 is they withhold. They don't tell you things. They don't show you things. They don't give you information. That's another way to trap you. You feel stuck. Number 7, of course, is gaslighting. It's just a way to make you think that you're crazy, a way to question your own mind. Reality, but they just straight up tell you that reality is not reality. It's just a way to weaken and destabilize you so that you can't think straight. You have like trauma brain. It's especially difficult in negotiations, which is why I do what I do for a living. And I created my entire Slay program, and I help you with all the things that I do. Number 8 is project and deflect. Going back to what I was talking about before, you question them. You say, you lied about this. You didn't do what you were supposed to do, or you did this and you weren't supposed to. You catch them in a lie, or you catch them doing something and they say, no, I didn't do that, or somebody else did that, or whatever. They blame it on other people, or they say, oh, why are we dwelling on this? Let's just move to the future. Whatever it is that they need to do to just get you off of it at that time, because they just want to trap you into the situation of now. And then number 9 is, of course, just straight up lie, because they are liars. I mean, it's how do you know that they're lying? Because their lips are moving. I mean, they lie about things they don't even need to lie about, which is really always very puzzling to me. That is one of the easiest ways to create leverage against narcissists, by the way. And in my Slay program, I teach all of that. Slay stands for strategy, leverage, anticipating, and focusing on you. And in the leverage part of the program, I do teach about how to use their lies against them. And it's so easy because they do lie all the time. Sometimes their lying can look like passive aggression. They do use like a passive aggression form of lying, especially the covert narcissists, which are one of the forms of narcissism that I absolutely detest the most, because it's like the stealthiest form of narcissism in a lot of ways. I had to deal with 2 of them. So yeah. Awful. Let's talk about phrases that narcissists use to control you. There are a lot of different ones that they use, but the good news for you is that narcissists actually do use the same types of phrases that in all different sorts of situations. I mean, the one thing I often say is that they're horrible, they're heinous, they're toxic, but it's almost like they use the same playbook. They are actually pretty predictable in their behavior. Are there different types of narcissists? Absolutely. There are. There are covert narcissists, there are grandiose narcissists, there are malignant narcissists. And by the way, if you want to know more about covert narcissism in relationships, I do have a whole video on that. I do believe that covert narcissists are probably the most dangerous type of narcissist in a lot of ways, because they're the most difficult to detect. A lot of times they're the stealthiest ones. They look kind and sweet, and a lot of times they paint themselves as a victim. Sometimes they're like downtrodden. Oh, poor me. They guilt trip people a lot of times. And so a lot of times the coverts are the most difficult ones to spot. And the two that I had to deal with that targeted me were both covert. So going back to phrases that narcissists use to control you, one of them is no one else will love you the way that I will, or no one else understands you the way that I do. No one else will deal with you. Basically trying to make you feel like you're so disgusting, repulsive, horrible, whatever in some way that you might as well not go anywhere else because they're the only ones who can, manage you, handle you, like you, love you, whatever. But yet somehow they love you, they like you, they deal with you, they manage you. But, you might as well stick with them because they do. But it's like kind of messed up because why do they stick with you and like you and love you or whatever? It kind of defies logic, but yet that is something that they often will say, so it's sort of like to get you to stay, because if you go anywhere else, you're going to be rejected. You'll be alone. You'll be isolated. So you might as well stick with this person who's basically mentally, psychologically, and spiritually abusing you. So that's number one. Number two is they talk in absolutes. Everyone else thinks this, or no one else thinks that. Like basically to try to get you to believe that whatever it is that you think is just stupid, dumb, ridiculous, not based in reality. If you're trying to make a point to them about something that you think, usually about something about them, they'll try to use this collective, who the hell knows who. You don't even know who everyone else is, or no one else is. But these, nebulous whoever's don't agree with you. They all agree with the narcissist, whoever these people are. But it's meant to try to make you feel bad. It's meant to try to make you feel like your opinion is completely discredited, invalidated, means nothing, and therefore you shouldn't have it because, whoever their flying monkeys are, they all are lined up with them and against you. So that's another kind of phrase that narcissists use to control you. Another type of phrase that narcissists use to control you, and there are going to be several of these. We're going to go into the types of phrases that narcissists use within the gaslighting realm. By the way, I do have a whole video on how to shut down gaslighting, which you should definitely check out as well. But so these are the types of phrases that narcissists will use to make you think that you're crazy, because gaslighting is meant to make you think that you're crazy. It's meant to make you feel like whatever it is that you're thinking isn't true, to make you question your mind, to make you question your reality, to make you question what it is that you believe that you saw or you heard, or what you're seeing isn't what you're seeing, or what you're hearing isn't what you're hearing, or what the conversation is that you believe took place isn't what you took place. Your feelings aren't your feelings. That's what gaslighting is. So they will say things in the gaslighting realm such as, you're oversensitive. So you're oversensitive is to invalidate your feelings. So if you are feeling hurt about something, that took place, then they'll say you're oversensitive. You shouldn't be hurt about that. That's meant to invalidate your feelings. Another gaslighting phrase is something like, we talked about that, and this is what we agreed to. You agreed to this, don't you remember? And you'll be like, we didn't agree to that. We never had that conversation. We agreed to this, or that conversation never took place at all. They will change the details of a conversation, or they'll basically say that you agreed to something that never took place whatsoever. That's total gaslighting. You'll say, you said this, and they'll say, I never said that. I never said that at all. Again, that's gaslighting. They'll say things like you're delusional when you're trying to say something about how something took place, or how you're feeling about something, or your perception of something that's happening. You're delusional. I mean, that's totally meant to just say you're crazy. I mean, that's straight up gaslighting. Straight up gaslighting. You know, if you see a text message between somebody and a coworker, you know, maybe it's your husband and a coworker that looks flirtatious or something, and, you know, it doesn't look totally appropriate. You're just jealous. And it turns out maybe you weren't just jealous. Maybe there was something going on between them. That's all gaslighting. Those are all gaslighting types of phrases. You know, they're designed to make you think that you're crazy. Another type of gaslighting is in conversation, where you're trying to have a conversation with them and you'll say, I want to talk to you about, you know, these text messages that I saw. And they'll say, why are you bringing that up now? And you say, well, when would be a good time? And they'll say, oh, I don't like your tone. Well, I didn't raise my voice. Yes, you did. You just raised your voice. And now I can't talk to you because you're raising your voice at me. And now you can't get to the point of it because they keep interrupting you about that. Oh, now you just interrupted me. Oh, now it's about this. Oh, now it's about that. And you can never get to the actual point of the conversation because they keep talking about other things. And, you know, they'll bring up something else, or they'll bring up something else, or they'll bring up something else. Again, you know, project, deflect, lie, deny. If you've seen any of this so far, I'd love to see it totally in the comments, because I'm sure that you guys have seen some of this so far. Okay. And then the next kinds of phrases that narcissists will use to control you are what I call guilt trip phrases. Guilt trip phrases. And you will definitely see this with covert narcissists. This is so much, you know, because of the victim mentality with covert narcissists. I mean, this is the one thing that you always see with covert narcissists. And I have a whole video on the one thing you always see with covert narcissists. You should definitely check it out. So guilt trip phrases. This is like, especially if you try to leave a covert narcissist, you try to leave a narcissist, you know, they might try to say things like, I would die if you leave, or don't leave the family. I would commit suicide if you leave, or you can't leave the family. Oh, I can't believe you're spending time over there. I can't believe you wouldn't be with the family. And so they'll try to guilt trip you, you know, so that you don't do the kinds of things that you want to do. They'll try to make you feel bad about having a life or doing other things or that. And so they will use phrases like that to try to guilt trip you back into doing the things that they want you to do. That's a little bit more passive aggressive. And, you know, you will see passive aggressive types of phrases from especially covert narcissists, you know, like, you know, you've lost weight, but, you know, you still have a ways to go, things like that, passive aggressive types of things from covert narcissists. It's like not so nice kinds of things. Like they try to say nice things, but then it ends up not being so nice, you know, that sort of thing. But that's not phrases used to control you. Those are just passive aggressive types of things, but that's another whole story. But this video and this podcast is really focused on the phrases that narcissists use to control you. If you have seen any of this, give me a totally in the comments. So if you are dealing with that pesky, awful, toxic narcissist, and you are just at your wit's end, and you're trying to figure out how to outsmart them, here are 5 secrets to outsmarting them. Number 1, agree with them. And I know what you're saying. What? Agree with them? They're crazy. They're pathological liars. They say anything they want to. They accuse me of stuff that's not true. I get it. I do. I've dealt with them. I've represented them. I've had them on the other side of my cases. Had to deal with them in my own life. So, I mean, nobody's immune. Narcissists are everywhere, right? But I'm talking about ways that you can bring them down. Because remember that a narcissist game is to manipulate you. I mean, you think it's to beat you, but it really isn't. Beating you isn't the outcome. There's really no outcome. They don't really have a goal or an outcome. Their outcome is just manipulating you, messing with you, making themselves look as good as possible. And the only way that they can make themselves look good is by putting you down. And so if you steal their thunder, if you take their ammunition away, then they don't know what to do with that. So you just say, if they say to you, you're always late, just say, you know what, you're right. I'm always late. And they're gonna, bristle at that at first. Oh, you're being, you're talking down to me, condescending, whatever. They can say whatever you want. Just say, no, I'm always late. That's what you say. I'm always late. And you're not saying it be careful not to say it in a way that's sarcastic or where they can tell that they're getting to you, because the whole purpose of this is to just show them that you're not affected, that you're completely nonplussed by what they're saying and how they're saying it. That's their perspective. You're always late, whatever. And they'll be thrown off their game with that. Okay. Now, the one little caveat I will say is if you're going to court with a narcissist, you definitely don't want to say this like in a deposition or in court or something like that. I mean, this is where you're just having a conversation with this other person and you're just coming up with ways to outsmart them and kind of beat them at their own game. So by them trying to manipulate you by getting a rise out of you and you just saying you're right, it stuns them. They're not quite sure what to do with that. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2 is the ear method. This comes from Bill Eddy, who is an author, an attorney, and a psychologist, and he's written books like Splitting and Biff and The 5 Types of People That'll Ruin Your Life. And he says you use ear statements. And this is especially true if you've got somebody who's just completely out of control and just losing their mind on you. You show empathy, attention, and respect. Ear, E-A-R. And I know what you're thinking. You don't want to show them empathy, attention, or respect because you don't empathize with them. You don't want to give them attention, and you certainly don't respect them. I get it. This is to outsmart the narcissist, remember? So if you act the way the narcissist expects you to act, then they know they have you. If you act in a way that they don't expect you to act, just like in number 1, where we said just agree with them, this is where you're giving them a little bit of attention. And remember, that's what the narcissist wants. They want attention. So you're just giving them just enough to say, I see that you're upset. It must be difficult to travel or whatever it is that you want to say to them, but you're just saying it without emotion. Just show them a little bit of empathy, attention, and respect. And if you're dealing with a narcissist in your life, just put yes in the comments. Okay, number 3 thing you can do is figure out leverage against them. Even if you're not negotiating with them in a formal sense, figuring out a way that you can gather around them and find their inconsistencies and figure out what it is that they're saying that they're lying about, catch them in their lies. Now, what I want you to do when you're doing this, though, is not show them right away what you've got, because if you're showing it to them real time, then they're constantly out gaming you, which they're very good at. I mean, narcissists are master manipulators, especially covert narcissists. Covert narcissists are great at looking really, really wonderful to 99% of the world. I know, I've had to deal with them myself. And if you want to know more about covert narcissists, make sure that you check out my video on covert narcissism in relationships, and I will definitely drop a link to that video below. But in the meantime, while you're gathering leverage and you're gathering motivation for them to want to have a conversation with you or do what you want them to do, you're just gathering, and you're waiting to use that leverage at a time that is most opportune for you. And that the time that you're going to use that is when you have them fully surrounded and there's no, it's like airtight. It's like soldiers that are surrounding a city or something like that. There's no escaping, because that's when they go crazy and their true colors really show through, which again is more leverage that you'll be able to potentially use down the road. Okay, number 4 is throw them off the scent. So what I mean by this is don't show a narcissist what you really want, because the minute you tell them what it is that you definitely don't want or you definitely do want, then that's the thing that they're going to do whatever they can to make sure you don't get it. Because if you're trying to outsmart a narcissist here, you don't show your hand. You don't show what it is that you want. You throw them off the scent. You act like nonchalant about the thing that you really want the most. And then the thing that you don't care about, you act like that's the most important thing ever. And especially if you're negotiating with a narcissist, this is very, very critical. I have a video on how to negotiate with a narcissist, and I will drop a link to that below. Check that out if you're trying to negotiate with a narcissist. But regardless if you're trying to negotiate or not, you're still in a negotiation if you're having to deal with this narcissist. So don't show them what it is that means the most to you, because that's what they will then target. Because then in the end, if you end up with what you want, who really cares if they knew that that was what you want? And if they think that you didn't get what you wanted, act like, oh my gosh, this was just horrible or whatever. And then, when you go back to your house or you go back to your room or whatever, you can just be like Dr. Evil and squeal and and you got what you wanted. So who really cares if he or she knew that you got what you wanted? Okay. And number 5 has nothing to do with the narcissist at all. It has everything to do with you. And in my book, Negotiate Like You Matter, and in my programs, those of you who've worked with me or those of you who've read my book, that the most important thing is your internal feeling of value. So you focus on your own power, you focus on your own value and your own internal feeling of value. Remember that narcissists have no internal feeling of value. They get all their feeling of any sort of value from the external. And the more you can just be that oak tree and that you can just stand in your power, the less the narcissist will get to you. And that is really the best way to outsmart that narcissist. I definitely would try to get that narcissist out of your world if you possibly can. I always say, show them the door to your world, have a nice life. But obviously, if you're co-parenting with a narcissist and, you're still going to have to have them in your world, do something like parallel parenting, something where you don't have to deal with them on a regular basis. Okay, how do you become non-reactive? So hard, right? So hard. It's like feels impossible because they just want to trigger you. That is their main goal. They know that if they trigger you, then they have you. That's what they want to do. Why do they do that? They do that because, well, for a number of reasons. First of all, they enjoy it. They actually enjoy it. They enjoy watching you become unglued. It's theater to them. They get narcissistic supply from it. That's like anything that feeds their ego. They know they have control over you then. They know that they still have power over you. They know that they still can get something from you, right? They know that they have that like jolly thing going on over you if you get triggered. That's one of the reasons that they do it. And another reason, even more sinister, even more stealth, even way worse, is because they get you to do things that they can potentially use against you. And as a lawyer, I'm telling you right now, and in negotiations, it's so much worse because it's like getting arrested. Negotiating with a narcissist is like getting arrested. Anything you can and do or say will potentially be used against you. So it's so important because anything that you write, anything you put your hand to is a potential trial exhibit or is a potential thing that they're going to use against you in negotiations. So it's really important to become non-reactive in negotiation. So how do you do that? Well, one way you can do that is to know your truth. Know who you are, right? Know who you are. I love the book, The 4 Agreements. It's 4 agreements you make with yourself. And one of the agreements that you make with yourself is you don't take things personally, because the way people treat other people is always a direct reflection of the way they feel about themselves. I love the expression, you can't chase every dog that barks. I mean, you know, people are always going to be saying things. You can't take things personally. And I had this teacher one time, it was this meditation teacher, who said to me, if people say things to you, just, you know, take a listen to it and then decide, is it true? And if it's true, then clean it up. You know, do I need to apologize? What do I need to do? If it's not true, then just, you know, move on. When people are attacking you and you want to look fearless, by the way, I have a whole video on that called How to Look Fearless When a Narcissist is Attacking You. You can definitely check that out. But just know your truth, know who you are, and don't defend yourself, by the way. I have a whole video on that too. Because when you defend yourself, that's when you're being a victim. So don't defend yourself. Know your truth. Just stand in your power. And that's one way to become non-reactive. Don't defend yourself. Just state your facts. And, you know, you never explain, justify, overshare. You don't get into the trenches with them. You just know your truth. State your facts. Stand in your power. So that's number 1. Number 2 is look at things as an observer. You don't process things emotionally. You look at them as a third-party observer, almost like you're watching a tennis match or you're watching it happen. It's not actually happening to you. You're watching it. Like there's this glass shield that's happening right here and you're just seeing it happen. Oh, I just saw those words come past me. Oh, I just saw them go that direction. I saw that this person said this thing to me. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Yeah. That happened. I see you. So I'm seeing it happen. I'm seeing it as an observer, and you can even verbalize it to them. I see that you're upset. I see that you just said that to me. And when you start to verbalize it that way, you are actually starting to observe it to them, and you're just non-reactive. So I want you to practice that right now. I want you to write, I see you in the comments below. Because I want you just to start practicing, I see you, because it's almost like you're playing tennis and you're volleying it back to them. I see you. I see you. You're pushing it back. You're pushing it back to them. You're looking at it as an observer. You're not allowing it to come over to you. It's not coming to your side of the equation. Got it? You're just looking at it as an observer. You're not being triggered. You are not reactive. That's number 2. And number three is advice that I take myself all the time, every day. And that is, I never leave my thoughts unsupervised. Never leave your thoughts unsupervised. It is a constant process. What your input is what your output is going to be. Obviously, when you're at work, when you are doing things, you're going to be busy. Your thoughts are going to be whatever your thoughts are going to be when you're focused on something else. But when your thoughts have those times of being able to just think whatever they're going to think, I think we think like, 40 thoughts a minute, 100 thoughts a minute, whatever it is. And a lot of times our thoughts go toward the negative if we don't train them properly. So train them properly. So how do you do that? You make sure that you keep your vibrational level high. Good thoughts, positive thoughts, joy, happiness, contentment, peace. Those are high vibrational thoughts. You want to make sure you keep them high. So how do you do that? You listen to audiobooks, you listen to YouTube videos, you listen to podcasts, whatever it is that you need to listen to make sure that those thoughts are going where you need to go. And you can listen to books that are going to keep you motivated, keep you positive, keep you energized, keep you feeling good, whatever it is, whoever makes you feel good, whoever makes you feel like I'm ready, I'm good, this is great. Because thoughts are just thoughts. Those are just beams of energy that are firing off in your brain. That's all they are. And you can rewire them to be whatever you want them to be and create whatever you want. And you can literally manifest whatever life you want to manifest. You just got to reprogram the thoughts. Okay, so that's number 3. Never leave your thoughts unsupervised. And that's how you start to become non-reactive to people and how you can start to become not triggered by those crazy toxic people in your life, which is super critical when you are dealing with them, when you're negotiating with them, whether it's a formal negotiation or whether it's just a conversation and you're just communicating with them on a daily basis. What to say to shut down that narcissist in your life. So remember that a narcissist wants to control you. That's how they get their feeling of narcissistic supply. That's what feeds them is, controlling you, intimidating you, making you feel awful, debasing you, sending you into a panic. And if you want to know how to make a narcissist panic, you should definitely check out my video on how to make a narcissist panic. They want to send you into that state of panic. They want you to be the one who's like on the defensive all the time. And I help people negotiate with narcissists, negotiate with toxic personalities, get the edge, get that leverage, figure out how to finally turn those tables, how to finally shift that dynamic, and so that you're the one feeling powerful. Because they want you to feel like you can never win. They want you to feel like it's never going to end. And they will continue to do that as long as they're getting some sort of narcissistic supply, which is, that smug satisfaction that they're controlling you and getting the edge over you. They're going to continue to be in your life. And that's why some of you have been dealing with these people for years. And, they collect people as forms of supply, like people collect jars of jam or something for the winter. They line them up on the shelves and go, oh, I can get more supply out of this one. I can get more supply out of that one. So as long as they're getting some form of narcissistic supply from you, you're going to continue to have to deal with them. It's like taking that fire and sucking all the oxygen away from it. That's the only way that you'll finally be able to shut them down. So the first way that you can shut down that narcissist is to just say no. And if you want to know more about what happens when you say no to the narcissist, you should definitely check out my video on what happens when you say no to a narcissist, when you just say no. What happens is that the narcissist is so used to controlling you. They've set up this elaborate situation where you feel powerless, where you feel like, oh, I can't ever, get away from this. And it's almost so foreign to you. It's like putting on somebody else's clothes or somebody else's shoes. You're thinking, ugh, I can't, seems so strange to me. What's going to happen? Is the world going to fall apart? Are they going to lose control on me? And if you want to know what happens when a narcissist loses control, check out my video on that. But when you say no to a narcissist, it's you starting to take back your power. It's you starting to say, you know what? This is not okay. I'm going to say no. I'm not going to do that thing that you think that I should do. I'm not going to be that person that you think that I should be. I'm not going to take the deal that you're offering me. I'm not going to take the settlement proposal. I'm going to fight back. I'm going to push back. I'm going to go for what I want. And yeah, maybe there might be some backlash from it, but even if you trigger their narcissistic rage because you've touched on their narcissistic injury in some way, just remember that the narcissist is always the worst right before they're ready to give up. So just keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. The narcissist is one of the most scared little people on the planet. The not so secret is that you are actually the stronger one. They didn't attach themselves to you because you had no value. They attached themselves to you because you have so much value, because they can get that narcissistic supply from you. So try out just saying no to them for one or two things and see how it goes. The second thing is, I hear you. All people want to feel seen, heard, and know that they matter. And I talk about that in my book, Negotiate Like You Matter. It's actually in my book. Matter is the acronym for how to negotiate, and M actually stands for my value is defined by me. You and you alone define your value. We all want to know that we matter. That's all part of being human. And, in some ways we all have like a narcissist in us, but it's not, we don't use that word, because what narcissism really is when it gets to the pathological stage where, they can't see anybody but themselves, and they can't feel anything for anyone but themselves. And so they're just constantly, doing whatever they can to feel that. So if you say, I hear you, it actually kind of softens them a little bit, and they stop like barking right at you and going right after you, because they feel seen, heard, and they know that they matter. Sometimes it's called narcissistic fluffing, where you fluff up their ego a little bit. You can give them a little compliment or something just to get what you want in exchange for something. But just saying, I hear you, that will help to shut them down. The next thing is saying, I trust you, or I trust that. And it's kind of like what I talk about in my book, which is embedded commands, where you're basically kind of telling them how you feel. I trust that you care about the children. I trust that you want a good settlement. This is all part of what I talk about with ethically manipulating the manipulator. That's a really, really important part of how you get to slaying the narcissist in negotiation. And I talk about my slay methodology in my program, which is slay your negotiation with a narcissist. So strategy, leverage, anticipate, and focus on you. But when you say, I trust you, or I trust that, you're kind of like putting thoughts out there that they can't disagree with. So it helps to shut them down. The next one is say nothing. Just continue to look at them, let them rant, let them rave. Just, put yourself in a situation as if you're watching it in a movie, or you're watching a scene on a stage in a play, or you're watching a 2-year-old have a tantrum on the floor. You're just going, okay, I'm watching you, so you don't say anything. And saying nothing just absolutely drives them crazy, and it helps to shut them down, because eventually there's nothing to fight with. There's no bait. There's nothing more that they can use. And, sometimes it takes a tremendous amount of restraint to do this, but just try it out and see what happens. Just say nothing. And if you are so ready to shut down that narcissist, give me a shut them down in the comments right now. The next one is everything is okay. This, makes them feel like, hey, we're in this together. We're going to figure this out together. It's all right. I mean, you're sort of treating them like a toddler, because they really are like toddlers. They kind of never really grew out of that stage of, the toddler's creed. What's mine is mine. What's yours is mine. Everything is mine. If I want it, it's mine. If, even if I threw it away, it's still mine. But, that's the old toddler's creed. In this instance, you're just sort of saying, it's okay. Everything's okay. We'll figure this out. You can just calm down, and that's, again, you're not giving them anything to push back on. How can they argue with that? And the last one is my absolute favorite, which is, drum roll please, no contact. Get rid of them. Out. Goodbye. Bye, Felicia. See you later. Hopefully never. Have a nice life, but have it away from me. And that's what I had to do with the narcissists in my life. And thankfully, I haven't had to talk to them for a long time. And hopefully you won't either. Just suck that oxygen away from that fire. Do not give them anything that they can use. Goodbye. Enjoy your life somewhere else away from me. And I have to tell you, from my perspective, what I've had to do as well is stay away from even the people that I know are in those people's lives. It's unfortunate. There were people that I liked. There were people that I would have wanted to stay in touch with, but I cannot have any contact or even contact with their flying monkeys or anyone in their worlds, because my peace of mind, my life is not worth what it would take to be involved with anything to have to do with those narcissists. And I promise you it will get so much better. And I promise you that I've helped so many people get past narcissists by negotiating their way out of those relationships and getting the settlement that you deserve. That's fair. That's equitable. I've been able to turn it around. It's part of karma. It's part of quantum law. You can do this. You can absolutely put your mind to this and get where you want to get.
All right, you're over there, you're going like, I don't know how to create boundaries. You want boundaries that will actually work. I want to help you make boundaries that'll actually work. I'm going to give you 5 ways. So you're going to want to watch all the way till the end so you get all 5. So number 1 is you got to stop explaining yourself. Once you create those boundaries, you want to try to tell them why you're creating boundaries. You want to say to them, well, I needed to do this because, and it's you're this and I that. And because that's when you leave yourself open. That's when they start to do that thing that they do, that Svengali thing that they do on you. And you can't go there with them. You can't leave yourself open. You can't listen to their crap because they know how to do that thing that they do with you. I'm sorry, but they've been conditioning you from the beginning. They know how to read you. They know how to trigger you. They know how to get under your skin. The first thing you have to do is, once you say, these are the boundaries, we're going to use one form of communication. That's it. You don't need to explain yourself. or whatever your boundary is. You're going to pick the kids up at the curb, or you're going to, speak to me in a certain manner, whatever it is that your boundary is, then you don't need to explain yourself. That's it. This is my new rule. I don't need to tell you why. That's the new thing. So stop explaining yourself. That's number one. Number two is stop making yourself look vulnerable. Don't make yourself look weak by putting yourself out there, by saying, sorry, I had to do this. By making yourself look vulnerable, then that gives them that opening. When you make yourself look vulnerable, it gives them that opportunity to come in and pounce. So don't cry in front of them. Don't look weak in front of them. You can scream in front of your pillow, whatever it is, but don't lose control. Don't get emotional. Don't allow them to trigger you. Seriously, just don't. No emotion. Stick to the boundaries. So those are items 1 and 2. These are just things that you have to do in order for them to really start to respect you. And if you really want to know who a narcissist respects, I have a whole video on the only person that a narcissist respects. I would definitely check out that video if you really want to know who a narcissist respects. And the next one is to stop looking for what I call attunement or getting the narcissist to like agree with you, or, to stop getting them to like see your side, or getting the narcissist to see why you're doing what you're doing, acknowledge you, and say, don't you see why this is going to work for us? Don't you see why this is better? Don't you see that this is going to be better all around for everybody? This is going to be best for both of us. If you're trying to get them to see reason, you're not understanding that they just don't think the same way that reasonable people think. Their brains just don't operate the same way. And the faster that you can get yourself to understand that, the faster that you'll be able to heal, the faster that you'll be able to protect yourself, the faster that you'll be able to move on, the faster that you'll be able to get to be on the offensive. There's so many things that'll work better for you once you understand that. Just don't expect attunement. Don't expect them to agree with you. So stop looking for agreement and acknowledgement. If you want a boundary that's going to work, just stop looking for that, because it's not going to happen. You're never going to get them to see your side. I want you to just put, I will stop now. I will stop now. I want you to put that in the comments, because that's your cue to yourself to understand that you're going to stop explaining yourself. You're going to stop looking vulnerable. You're going to stop looking to get them to see your side, all of those things right now. The next thing is that you're going to stop expecting them to change. Because they're not. They're not going to suddenly get to be better people. They're not going to suddenly future fake you into, oh, I've changed, I'm better, it's going to be different now. It's not. You probably have heard it a million times, they're not going to change. All right. So if you want to have a boundary that's going to work, understand that they can't come back and say, oh, let me cross the boundary because this time it's going to be different. It's not. And number five, if you want to set a boundary that's going to work, stop excusing them. Stop excusing them. Stop excusing them because they had a bad childhood. It's not that bad all the time. These are what I call like red flags that you look past, that you should like look for in yourself. because you kind of defend them for them, then you make it easier for them in that sense, so because you're excusing them. And so if you want to have boundaries that work, stop excusing them. So those are the 5 things that you can do if you want to have boundaries that work. Stop explaining yourself. Stop making yourself look vulnerable and being emotional in front of them. Stop looking for attunement or agreement. Stop excusing them. Stop expecting them to change, and stop excusing them.
So let's talk about that narcissist. The narcissist is a master manipulator. They have spent their entire lives learning how to manipulate. They are masters at reading people. And if you want to know more about why narcissists are so good at reading people, check out my video on that topic. They are excellent at it. And they have spent their entire lives at it. There was that book, Outliers. I don't know if any of you have ever read that book by Malcolm Gladwell. And he talks about how you need 10,000 hours to become super skilled at something and achieve mastery level. Well, narcissists have way more than 10,000 hours at learning how to manipulate people. They've spent their entire lives learning how to manipulate people. And so everything they do is a manipulation. Pretty much everything they do is to manipulate you. It's to control you. It's to make you feel devalued. It's to make themselves feel more superior than you. And so they are really, really good at doing that. So how do you manipulate them back? And why would you want to do that? Well, number one is that if you're in a negotiation with a narcissist, you are in the fight of your life. There's no doubt in my mind. They have one goal, and that is to take you down. It's to make your life miserable. It's to control you. It's to make you squirm. That's what they want in the negotiation. And so you are not playing on a level playing field. You, reasonable person, are going, well, I just want what's fair, and maybe we can both come to a reasonable conclusion. Well, maybe there's some way we can sort of meet in the middle or whatever. You cannot do that when you are dealing with a narcissist, because a narcissist doesn't want to come to a reasonable conclusion. They want to make you miserable. They get narcissistic supply from that. So, and remember that narcissistic supply is anything that feeds a narcissist's ego. It's what they need to build themselves up. So they're constantly looking for it. They're like sharks smelling blood in the water. And there's more supply, and there I can get more supply, and there I can get more supply. They're like hoarding it and desperate for it. They are predators. Make no mistake about it. They are predators, and they need an endless amount of narcissistic supply. It's like a black hole that can never be filled. And they get narcissistic supply in a negotiation by making you squirm, by making you miserable. So the only way that you're going to be able to fight back against that is by ethically manipulating the manipulator. And if you are so ready to fight back against that narcissist, give me a fight back right now in the comments. So how do you do that? Well, one of the ways that you can do that is by being prepared and anticipating how they are going to behave, and then not being surprised when they behave like a narcissist. So that when they go off on you, when they call you all sorts of names and say that you're a deadbeat, or say that you're a loser, or whatever verbiage they use that basically says that, you're going to say, oh, I expected you to say that. There you go, being your narky self. Okay, smile and move on. And then if you need to respond to them, you respond very, very tactically. So that is another way that you can ethically manipulate the manipulator, is by responding tactically. In other words, if they send you a long, huge text or a long, huge email filled with vitriol, filled with poison, filled with all sorts of things meant to trigger you, you are going to respond tactically. You are going to look through this email as if you are reading the newspaper or reading a fact sheet or a data sheet, and you're going to go, I don't need to respond to that. I don't need to respond to that. I don't need to respond to that. Oh, that I need to respond to. So you just pick the one or two things in there that you say, okay, I need to respond to that. Like, what time are we doing something? Or when will this take place? Or something like that, some factual thing. And then you respond only to that. And then the rest of it you either ignore, or maybe you say something very, very tactical like, I'm in receipt of your email, I deny your allegations, and here's my response to the one thing that I need to respond to. So tactical responses is very, very helpful. Another thing that you can do is provide value for value by saying something to the narcissist like, can you handle this financial thing? You're so much better at numbers than I am. Something like that. It's called like narcissistic fluffing. You're sort of fluffing up their ego so that they now feel like you're respecting them in some way. You're giving them adulation in some way. They need an endless amount of adulation. So you can just, give them a little something so that you can get a little something. These are ways that you ethically are manipulating the manipulator. You have to do it in order for you to get anywhere and get something that you want out of this situation. You have to understand that they need to feel like they're getting something out of this. They will not do anything unless they feel like they're getting something out of it. And the last thing that you can do when you're going to negotiate with them is when you present your offer, you just make sure that you're asking for a hell of a lot more than what it is that you're actually wanting. And never let on what the one thing is that you really, really want, or the few things that you really, really want. Act like you really, really want something else. Because that way, if you end up giving up on it, then the narcissist thinks that they got to you. So remember that when you're doing this little game with the narcissist, which unfortunately you have to play this game because that's who they are, you're never going to win by having them know that you won in a certain way, because they'll just keep pushing. They'll keep fighting. Because as long as they feel that there's some amount of supply to be had from you, then they will continue to come back to get it. Even if it's just scraping the bottom of the peanut butter jar, as much as, that's how much narcissistic supply there is left to get from you, they're coming back for it. Because as I said, they are predators. They want to come as much as there's still some kind of food, some kind of something that they can get out of this situation. The only way that you will end up getting them to stop is by letting them know that there's no more supply to be had from you.
All right, so let's dive in and give you the top 10 ways to actually outsmart narcissists in a way that you can do it without backlash, without them like freaking out on you, without you like ending up going, oh my God, how in the heck am I going to do this and actually come out unscathed? Because you know how they are. They end up like flipping their lid, right? I mean, that narcissistic injury gets triggered and that narcissistic rage comes flying out. They want to punish you. They want to make sure that you never do that again. They want to make sure that you stay under their little like finger, their web of control. I was actually just talking to somebody this morning and they were like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know how I'm going to escape. This person I was talking to this morning is living with it for 30 years. And just now trying to figure out how to escape plotting and planning and making sure that she does it the right way in outsmarting the narcissist. And that's what I'm going to do. So by the end of this video, you're going to have 10, and I'm going to start with number 10, and we're going to work our way backwards so that you stay all the way to the end to get number 1. Ready? Number 10. Number 10 is don't take the bait. Okay? So they want you to take the bait. That's what they do. I mean, I remember dealing with a family member who was a narcissist, and he would be like, you get into it with him and he'd be like, yeah, now we're having a conversation. I mean, he wanted you to get into the mud with them. And once you're down in that mud, that's when they feel like now they have you, right? So when they get emotional and they get you to get emotional, then they know that they've got you into that vortex. They're pulling you in. And when they freak out and you freak out and you match their level, you're in it. So when they go here and you stay here and you stay calm, you've outsmarted them because they don't know how to do that. They're trying to pull you in and you haven't taken the bait. So that's number 10. That's one of the ways that you can definitely outsmart them. All right. Number 9. Number 9, and this is especially when you're negotiating with them, because that's my specialty, that's my sweet spot, that's my superpower. That's one of the things I love to do is negotiate, and that is to throw out a decoy. Okay, so when you're in the thick of it and you're trying to negotiate with them, whether it's a business deal, partnership, client, divorce, whatever it is, it could be in your own household. Who knows? Maybe it's a teenager. I mean, I've been coaching somebody who's been dealing with a huge family issue with regard to a probate litigation matter. Throw out a decoy for what it is that you actually want, because if they know what you actually want, then they're going to make it their mission to make sure that that's the thing that you don't actually get. Because why? Because they get supply from jerking you around, remember, right? The end goal for them is not resolution. The end goal for them is supply. They get supply from jerking you around and intimidating you. So you can throw out a decoy and then you can kind of fit in what it is that you actually want down the road, but you're sort of throwing it into a package, and you sort of figure out a way to strategically place it in so that you end up getting what you want, but maybe they don't necessarily know that you're ending up getting what you want. See what I mean? All right, number 8. Number 8 is asking for more than what you want. This is, again, in a negotiation. You're going to figure out what it is that you want, and then you're going to ask for way more than that, so much that they end up going, F you, I'm out of here. I mean, that's kind of a strategy for any kind of negotiation, by the way. You are going to ask for more than what you want and kind of back your way down, but never so much that you are going to make the other person so angry. But that's definitely something that you can do. All right, number 7. Number 7 is, I like this one. I like number 7 because it's a way for you to kind of disengage. Number 7 is just observe their behavior to them. So you're looking at them and you're kind of going, I can see that you're angry. You're almost like, you have to pretend almost like you have a microphone in your hand and you're reporting the news. I see that you are upset. I see you being angry. You kind of like look at them and you can almost observe their behavior to them. And it starts to disarm them when you do that, because you're actually validating them. You are actually noticing them and empathizing with them and giving them attention, which is something that they want. They want to be seen. All people like to be seen, heard, and validated. That's just part of being human. And so that actually helps to start to disarm them. And actually, I have a whole lot more on that in my video called Phrases That Disarm Narcissists, which you can check out if you'd like. But, you just kind of observe their behavior to them almost as if you are a third party. And it helps you to disengage as well, by the way. All right, so that's number 7. We are working our way down to number 1. Number 6. Number 6 is you don't defend yourself. When you start getting into, I never said that, I never did that, oh, how can you say that about me? I'm a great mom, I'm a wonderful father. Look at all the ways that I contributed to this business. Look at all the wonderful things that I've done. If you're really dealing with a true narcissist, the chances of them going, oh my God, you are right. Oh, yes, you have done all of those wonderful things. I am the wrong one. That is not going to happen. You know that's not going to happen. So you're just like wasting your breath in your air. So when they criticize you, you can just look at them and you go, wow, someone got up on the wrong side of the bed or something like that. I mean, I remember having a family member one time who was like really upset about something and came over and like accused me of something like that was like completely preposterous. She was like fighting with her husband and I wasn't even involved in the situation at all. But then she just like came over to me and went, and you, blah, 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 blah. And I just remember looking at her and I went, traveling with children is so stressful. Like, I just like didn't even allow it to like come on to me at all. And I didn't even take it on. And so when they do that, you just don't defend yourself and it really will help you so much. You just never try to explain, defend or justify. It really will help you. And that actually brings me into number 5, which number 5 is never explain or justify anything you do. Kind of goes with number 6 which is never defend. Number 5 is never explain or justify. So you never try to go, oh, well, I did this and I did that. Justify yourself. I mean, it's just, again, it's sort of like defending. You're kind of giving credence to them. You're lending validation to things that they're saying, and that's what they want. You're getting into the mud. You're getting emotional. Again, you're giving them supply by doing that, right? So you don't need to do that. And number 4, we're working our way down to number 1 here, so stick with me. Number 4 is to create leverage, which is all part of my SLAY methodology. L is leverage, S is strategy. Create leverage and then never give it away too early. So you do want to create leverage, which I'm going to give you a little hint. With narcissists, leverage is always going to be tied up in somehow looking at their forms of narcissistic supply because that's the only thing that ever motivates a narcissist. Like with other humans, they are motivated by lots of different things, but with narcissists, they're really only ever motivated by one thing. Now, it may be different ways that they get narcissistic supply. There's definitely a hierarchy of supply, but they're only ever motivated by supply. So remember, create leverage and then don't give it away too early. So that's number 4. Number 3 is remember that everything that you put your hand to is a potential trial exhibit. So be really, really careful about that. You want to make sure that you are not like putting yourself in a position where you've given them something that they can use against you, because they will, you get angry, you put something in there, and now that you've got something, right? You don't want to have to be on that defensive, right? You want to be on the offensive. You want to be in a position where you can fight back. And by the way, if you're so ready to fight back, give me a fight back in the comments right now. Fight back. Just remember that everything you put your hand to is a potential trial exhibit. Don't put anything in writing that they can potentially use against you. And number two, we're working our way up to the number one way that you can outsmart the narcissist. But number two is, in that same vein, remember that everything that you are doing, and it's kind of really closely related to everything you put your hand to, but everything you're doing, they're going to try to use everything you do or say against you. Like, remember, dealing with a narcissist is like getting arrested. They're going to try to goad you. They're going to try to use everything. They're going to try to use everything you do or say against you. They're going to like trick you. They're going to try to catch you, and even watch for ulterior motives. I mean, even if they're being nice, they're love bombing you, they're hoovering you, they're they're doing all these things. Watch for ulterior motives, because, you really can't trust them. Sorry to say. All right, so that's number two. Ready for number one? The number one way to outsmart a narcissist? Ready? Go no contact. Heal. Don't look in the rearview mirror. Wipe them from the CPU of your life. Say bye-bye. And that's the worst thing that you could possibly do to them, is actually no longer care what they're doing, because you're no longer giving them supply, and you've moved on, and you've healed. That's the one thing that they really don't want, because you're no longer affected by them at all.